This is Carmelo, and he started SprayNet at 23 years old and scaled it to $30 million a year.
Your business is either growing or it's dying. You can't stay like this. You can start a business with not that much money.
His secret? Well, he realized the gap that everyone in the painting industry failed to see.
For me, like when people say it's always been done that way, that triggers me. If it's always been done that way, that means nobody ever really looked into it, and then you probably should. And it all started with an idea that everyone said was impossible. You can't fail if you don't quit. We actually have a patent on this process. Nobody really believed that this was possible.
Carmelo, I'm excited to get into this interview. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the business side of things, tell us who you were at like 23. What were you doing before SprayNet came into being?
What was I doing at 23? I was actually in this industry. I was actually a student painting franchisee. You know, brushing, rolling conventional paints on.
How early did you start with the college pros?
20 years old.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so 3 years before that.
And you got into it just like for any other reason, right? Make some bucks here and
there.
I
just really always want to start my own business. And you know, they came to a university, had a recruitment seminar, and I can start my own business, I don't care what it's in, let's do it.
Where are we exactly, and how do you utilize this building here?
This is actually our SprayNet HQ. It's our biggest of our offices, and we've got our most inventory here. We manufacture here and we distribute most of North America through here.
Wow, so across how many locations as of today?
About 130.
Everything pretty much comes out of here, and then what's the other location?
Miami location. So we've got a Florida location, we've got this location here.
Gotcha. How many people are working out of here?
Physically about 25 to 30. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but most of our staff is remote. We've got people working all over the place.
Awesome. We'll give you guys an inside look coming up. Let's give our audience a tour of your warehouse, your office, and let's head over to where the paint mixing happens.
Sure.
You want to do that?
Let's do it.
Okay, I'll follow you in. So at 19, you became a franchisee of College Pro, right?
Yeah.
How did that happen? What are the costs? Just in a nutshell, so we understand that a 19-year-old can make it happen.
What is cool though about College Pros is it's intended for students. So there's no upfront cost, but you got to grind. So you got to bootstrap. So you basically are knocking on doors to get jobs. And then with those jobs, you're financing the rest. So you're starting with very little money.
How much?
Like less than 5,000. So basically, you get your truck, you get a small used truck, obviously, and some equipment. I mean, starting a paint company doesn't require much equipment, right? Brushes, rollers, pans.
Right.
So not much to it. You can start with that.
College Pro kind of gave you the base to get going, to understand the industry a little bit. What did you learn a lot? What takeaways?
College Pro was by far the best learning I've ever had in my life, right? Like they taught us how to sell, they taught us how to grind, how to knock on doors, how to manage people. They literally taught us everything. Actually, our COO now is actually the VP at College Pro.
Really?
He taught me how to run a painting business. So 10 years later, hired him to help our franchisees do the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would you suggest somebody to get in and start that way as opposed to, starting their own company, no scratch, no experience, no so on?
That depends on you, but I mean, franchising is a great way to kind of start a business without having to start from scratch, right? Like they got the process, like we do now. You don't have to come up with that crazy idea. If you just want to operate a business, which is what I wanted to do initially, I didn't really care the industry. I just wanted to operate a business, and they provided me the framework to be able to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea but lack the expertise? Well, Carmelo here, we formulated paint with zero background in chemistry. You won't want to miss this. All right, how many square feet do you have here?
We've got about 15,000 square feet here.
15, and you're utilizing really every square inch of it.
Yeah, and our other office too is like full to the rim.
So what happens? You got the delivery station or whatever you call it.
Yeah, raw materials will come in here.
Yeah.
And then these are actually our shipping lanes here. So
this is actually going to where? Job sites?
Yeah, so this is going to franchisees.
Phoenix.
So Cincinnati, Jersey South, Austin, Jacksonville, Utah.
Those mixers, I've never seen anything like that. What do you call these? What do they cost? Give us a quick understanding.
So each of these is about 30 to 35,000 each.
Whoa.
We can make bigger batches in these. So these are drums, so we could actually put bigger ones. So we can make up to 200 gallons at a time in this here. So what ends up happening here is we create the big batches of base.
Gotcha.
And then we start separating it into smaller colors. Yeah. So this will probably be turning into a whole bunch of different other colors.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Then the base is like a gray-looking color.
Yeah, depending on the
product. Doesn't really matter which color it is.
Yeah. So this one is actually a pretty small batch, so it's likely going to be a finished product.
All right.
Yeah.
At what point did you go full-time into SprayNet and then forget the College Pro altogether?
When I was doing College Pro, I was never really satisfied with the products that we were applying or whatnot. So I actually just decided to throw some flyers out there called SprayNet. And the year after, I actually never had the intent to continue, but a few customers called me. Yeah, and I was like, okay. First one, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Second one, I said, I'm not doing this anymore. A third one called me like 2 days later. I'm like, you know what? Call the other two people back, signed all three of those jobs. I said, hey, let's do this again. Buy back all the equipment.
Wait, so you have these flyers, you're giving them out even though your intention is to really not pursue it, and then people start calling? Did I understand you right?
Yeah, so the end of my last year of college pro, I was like, well, let's try this new service out. And it was just kind of to fill up the end of the season. And then people kind of kept them for the year after, and I was like, well, maybe we're onto something. This whole spray application is good. And then that's where we took it from there, and we just...
At that point, you didn't engineer anything, you didn't change the game in any way at that point, right?
No, at that point, I was literally like, I need a better finish than brush and roller, so let's spray it on. That was our innovation.
That's it.
Spray applied. That's it.
That's where SprayNet came from?
Exactly. The story is not as intense as you think it is. It's basically like, I don't know if you guys say SprayNet for your hair. Here, locally, people say that. So it was just a name that we thought would stick. So it kind of started as a joke, threw it on a flyer, and it kind of stuck. So we were spray applied painting specialists, and yeah, net was for clean.
That's pretty cool. For those watching right now, Carm, and they're struggling between a side hustle that they know or think it can be a full-time thing, but they're struggling between switching from their day-to-day job over to the side hustle as full-time. Do you have any stories on that? Like, how did that happen for you eventually?
So for me, I guess once I start something, I like to go all in. I just don't believe that you can do something kind of part-time and expect it to work. If you've got a goal, well, this is your goal, work backwards towards. So if you're saying that, hey, I need to make, I don't know, X amount of dollars, well, reverse engineer that to think, okay, well, how many jobs is that? What marketing do I need to spend on that? You need to kind of learn the business that you're in. You need to work in it before you can start working on it. And I feel like people kind of get it reversed. Everyone wants to start working on it before they work in it, but it doesn't necessarily work out well that way.
And in it for you was the college pros, obviously, the paint.
Yeah, I was hands-on. I did every single job, right? I did the salesperson, the production manager, the sprayer. I really wanted to learn every aspect of the business, so now I can start working on the business, but understand how the business works internally.
Gotcha. Why don't we go, you said you were going to go to a job site where you guys are spraying a kitchen. Talk to us about that just a little bit before we head out.
Yeah, so the way that we do it is we basically spray everything on site. So we brand new kitchen in about a day or two. And the reason why we did it this way is because when we interviewed other people that were getting their cabinets painted, well, some people were using conventional paints. And they're like, well, it was scratch. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got that. But some people were doing it properly, right? They were taking off these cabinets, they were spraying them in a factory and bringing them back. So what were your pain points there? Like, well, I didn't have cabinets for like a month. And then when they brought them back, my house smelled like a body shop for like 2 weeks, right? Because it was solvents that are just outgassing in the house. And the third pain point was the boxes didn't look as good as the cabinets because they weren't sprayed on site. So I said, well, what if we can create a chemistry that doesn't smell, water-based, that has the same durability as factory, and create a process to do it all on site? Took us a couple of years to figure that one out, but that's our value proposition now for kitchens.
Dude, that's so cool. You just never stop researching and developing, do you?
Well, you're either growing or you're dying, right? So you got to keep going.
I love it. Let's go check it out, you guys. So what is this project? Give our audience a better understanding of what your team is doing here.
So you see everything's taped up because we're spraying all the boxes. So there's going to be air that evacuates all the fumes outside of here, so that when we're done, there's no more smell and everything will have a factory finish. So these are all the boxes and all the cabinets will be done in our booth.
What does a customer pay for something like this?
An average kitchen is about $4,500.
It's not bad.
Yeah. So this one is a bit bigger and it's two-tone, so it'll probably be around $6,000.
Gotcha. A lot of people don't pursue their ideas, business ideas, because of fear of failure. How do you, with what you've learned, what's your advice on how to overcome that fear and just go after it?
As somebody that's older, I would say make sure that you've got pretty clear expectations around how quickly you think the business is going to grow, how quickly that could potentially replace your income if you need to, and does that give you enough income to survive, right? Always have a plan A, B, and C. I think the fear is the unknown, right? But if you've got a few different options and they all work for you, now it's just taking those options and making them work.
That's awesome. You have a quote in your office about plan A. If plan A don't work, you still have what, 25 letters in there?
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go, guys. If plan A failed, you've got plan B, plan C, all the way to plan Z. So keep after it. Well, let's head over to the other project that you guys are working on. Tell us briefly on what that is all about.
Yeah, so we're going to do the outside of the home. We're inside here. We're going to be doing the vinyl siding around that home.
Gotcha. All right, let's head over there.
Do it.
Carmelo, tell us where we are. Tell me about the job, kind of what the client's paying and what your team's doing.
Yeah, so here we're actually doing a vinyl siding house. That's why you see it's a little popped up, so that way we can get behind the crack, so when it moves, it all looks uniform.
It's crazy because I run a real estate company and I've managed apartments, and I know vinyl never gets painted.
Yeah. Normally it doesn't. We actually have a patent on this process.
Wow.
So that base coat that you see is actually fortifying the vinyl so that when we can put a darker color on it, it won't warp.
What's the job cost to the customer here?
This one here all around the house will probably be around $4,000.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And this is across the services that you offer is exterior. Do you do anything with the roof?
Yeah, so we actually have a new product. We actually liquefied a roof and we can regranule an entire roof. So we actually prolong its life and change its color.
Wow. Tell me more about the relationship with the chemist. How did you find the chemist? How did that happen?
Well, at first, actually, just nobody really believed that this was possible. So I had to actually approach a whole bunch of different companies until someone actually gave us a shot. And that's when we created our first product. From there is when we actually hired a chemist. That's how the party started.
What did you have that then you took to the chemist? Because you have to have something, right?
Basically, I wanted someone who wanted a challenge. So I said, here's the challenge, here's what we have to figure out, here's how we can reverse engineer this, you think this is possible? And most people said no, and a few of them said yes. So basically what we do is we actually are able to weather adjust the coatings on site, and that's our secret, right, is we take these factory coatings and then we adjust it. So today it's sunny, we may have to slow down the dry time. If it's colder, we have to speed it up. And that's the piece that most people don't realize is the actual application temperature is so important, and that's what gives us that factory durable finish.
Well, let's go check out your truck, man. You've got the Ford Lightning. I'm excited. I'm a cars guy, especially EV, so let's continue it there.
Do it.
Yep. Share with us moments when you doubted yourself, maybe you doubted the fact that paint, what you wanted to do, it won't do, and talk about the PhD guy that said, no way, Jose, this ain't happening. How did you work through that in your mind, head, and so on?
I guess first things first is you always think things are going to be a lot easier than they actually are, right? So I went to a factory and I said, hey, can I try that paint on site? Because I figured, well, if we can get that paint to work on site, no problem. We sprayed it, it cracked entirely. So I'm like, okay, we got to figure this out. Why did it crack? Well, those products are made to be able to spray in a factory so that they dry really quickly and you could wrap up the product and ship it out. On site, however, with the sun, it dries too fast and it cracks. So that's when we actually figured out we had to adjust to the weather. Yeah.
And the PhD guy, did that hurt you a lot, or you were like actually using it as fuel to be like, you know what, I'm gonna make it happen?
Yeah, that fueled me because he was like, well, you can't add additives after the fact. And I'm like, well, why not? Like, it depends on how balanced your formula is. If you ready your formula to be able to do that, why can't you do that? And he's like, well, that's just not how it's done. He literally said, that's just not how it's ever been done. And I'm like, well, that motivates me.
That's awesome. So what experiences, what lessons can we as entrepreneurs learn from that? I think that's pretty cool, Carmelo.
For me, like when people say it's always been done that way, that triggers me, right? Like that like I have to figure it out.
Light bulb comes on, right?
Yeah, exactly. If it's always been done that way, that means nobody ever really looked into it, and then you probably should.
I like that. Did you guys know that 81% of you, our regular UpFlip viewers, are not yet subscribed? So take a second, hit that subscribe button, because when you do, it's a win-win. We get bigger caliber guests on there with a ton more value. So take a second to do that. We appreciate it. All right, Blitz time. Let's do it. Thanks, guys, for submitting your questions. I like that you're rocking those orange socks, too. Respect.
No choice.
Tech Job Tina says, if someone wants to create a paint or any service company for the sole purpose of turning it into a franchise down the line, what steps should they take up front when starting out?
Document every single thing you're doing so that you can scale it and create a training program around that.
Okay. Natural Films 5871 says, is it possible to minimize the number of employees by using painting drones or robots?
Well, we tried.
Cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, the hardware's there, the drone hardware's there, the software's not there yet.
Really?
Yeah, so in order to be able to properly like segment images and like really cut out like windows, etc., it's something we're actually working on now.
What would you recommend a small company that does $450,000 to $500,000 to do to scale to $1 million?
Change your marketing budget. You need to spend the money to hit that million. All
right. What are the margins of this industry?
I would say probably generally in the 40% gross margin. Margin.
That's not bad though, compared to many other industries.
Yeah. Ours is higher because we're doing something different.
All right. Miller Coolable. How do you retain good employees, workers, team members?
I said be cool to work with. Like literally it boils down to that. Do you suck to work with or are you fun to work with? Because those people will tell other people and you'll just build your team that way. That's what we did.
What's the biggest purchase you've ever made?
The first big purchase I ever made was my first building. It was $350,000.
Last one. Now at the stage you're at, what advice would you give your 19-year-old self?
This question comes up often. I wouldn't give my 19-year-old self any advice because you make decisions based on the information that you have at the time and it gets you to where you need to get. Hindsight is 20/20. So I feel like it worked out. I wouldn't change a thing.
You would?
No.
All right. So we've got a map of every location? Probably so far, or is this 100% accurate or not?
We gotta actually put a few more
missing?
dots. Yeah, there's a few dots missing. Yeah, we keep adding locations every month. So.
On that note, Carmelo, how has your franchise side of the business evolved? Talk to us about that.
So we started the franchise business in Canada in 2014, and we basically sold out Canada in about 3 years. And then we basically focused on how do we make this franchise offering more scalable, more process-oriented. We only started franchising in the U.S. End of 2020.
Oh wow!
And we now have more U.S. locations than we do Canadian ones. So now we have got all the systems in place. We've got all the training programs in place. Like we're a way more robust franchisor now.
That's awesome. You guys, if you want to get involved with Carmelo's business, SprayNet, it's something that is very different from what's out there. So you don't have a lot of direct competitors. You have an opportunity to join this franchise, right? I'm just throwing this out there because it's a wonderful opportunity. Click the link in the description below for more information, and do reach out if you're interested. What did it cost to start SprayNet, and how did you fund it?
Well, it was really coming up with the logo. That was probably the biggest cost. So found a graphic designer.
That's it?
Yeah, I mean, after that, it was creating some contracts and then knocking on doors. I mean, if you don't have any money to spend on marketing, you can always just bootstrap, right? You can knock on doors, especially in today's day and age. You can even create a Wix website. I mean, there's so many ways that you can, yeah, exactly, it's so cheap. You can start a business with not that much money.
Because a lot of people here, are maybe younger entrepreneurs, they have these ideas and they're like, I don't have a lot of capital. How do I get into it? What would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I would say Google. Like, Google everything, look online, like, how do I start a business? What does that mean? And I would say, like, you need to be able to sell. So if you want to take a sales course, knock on doors, create branding, and understand marketing. I mean, if you're not marketing your business, you're not going to have sales. So you need to understand marketing and sales. It starts there. Once that happens, then you can figure out the rest. So.
SprayNet, that's what it was like for you, honestly? Just knocking on doors was the initial way of...
knocking on doors and doing good work. And once you do good work, jobs create jobs, right?
Yeah, they speak for itself.
Yeah, exactly. And especially today, Google reviews and all of that kind of stuff, like, you can grow pretty quickly.
So with over 130 locations across US, Canada, I mean, that's incredible. What are the revenue numbers and margins that you can't share with us within the franchise rules?
Yeah, so our first year franchisees in the US are doing just shy of 500,000 in revenue. Our Canadian franchisees on average are doing 1.2 million in revenue.
Wow, it's a different market.
Well, no, only because they've been there longer. So I'm talking about first year and then, second and third years. So that's the average for that. In terms of gross margin, we actually have amongst the highest in the industry just because we're doing something that's so different. So our average gross margin across the system is 59.44%.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So.
Did you guys hear that? 59.4%?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's incredible, dude.
The only reason we're able to do that is because we're not selling time, right? We're selling something that's unique. So they're getting value from it because it's a fraction of the cost of replacement. And as a result, our franchisees are getting value from it.
Man, if that doesn't excite you as much as it does me, that's incredible. What was the biggest setback, you think, with College Pro days or even SprayNet, more or less?
I mean, the challenges are always similar, right? You're going to have people issues, you're going to have customer issues, you're going to have a whole bunch of issues, and they're just coming at you from all different directions. I guess you just need to kind of get some clarity, focus. What are my priorities? What do I need to do now to get past this, and not just get boggled down by everything at the same time?
You're not an overthinker, like you don't get bogged down, you just...
I try not to. I try not to.
Skill, right?
Yeah, exactly. If you've got an idea in mind, just pursue it. Just doesn't matter what everyone else is saying. Like, that actually fuels me. When people tell me it's not possible, I want to do it even more, right? Just make sure that you've got conviction, you've got grit, and you stick to that plan, right? If you've got a goal in mind, go for it.
Dude, well said. Going into the
lab.
The lab.
Yeah.
This is the lab.
Yes, sir.
This is where the magic happens. So, who runs this department? I mean, do you have an engineer on site, a chemist on site? How important is that?
There he is right there.
Oh, how you doing?
Yeah, so Paymon is actually our head chemist here at SprayNet.
I've been to some paint companies, but I've never seen labs within those companies.
Yeah, so this is how we test, the hardness, if it's brittle, the flexibility. So basically, the way that it works is we decide what we want our final film properties to be. So then we get those, and then we kind of figure out, how can we apply this on site in one shot?
Wow. And you're doing all the hard work for your franchisees.
Yeah, that's kind of our role.
Anything explosive here?
Yeah, for sure. It's all actually on there.
What is it? Just the stuff you add to the paint? Or?
Yeah, so there's some solvents in there. I mean, there are some solvents still in the paint, even though it's all water-based.
Yeah.
You still have to add a few solvents in, yeah.
When you first started SprayNet, what were the initial steps that you took to spread brand awareness, secure your first customers, and so on?
Well, to get our first customers, we mentioned I was knocking on doors, and those created jobs. And then really, at one point, I painted a town hall. And I told, I went to see the local newspaper and I said, hey, we're going to be painting this town hall. Can you just do a story on us? And that story led to another story that led to another story. And then, people kept talking about us. And then as people kept talking about us, we got more jobs. As we got more jobs, more people kept talking about us, right? So the thing is, I initially, when we first started, invested every single penny back into the business. For the first 4 years, I literally did not draw a salary, nothing. I literally invested everything back into marketing every year.
A couple of things you mentioned that are really important that I want to highlight. A, how did you land the town hall?
It was one of the first big ones, and I really wanted to land it because I wanted to get some
exposure.
Yeah, some exposure. So I kind of obviously strategically, priced it, and I was actually, we painted the house of someone who worked there, so I was like, perfect, this is my in. Yeah.
Gotcha. You were really creative. I mean, that's, I think, a quick tip for you guys. If you're taking a big job, that may be an opportunity as well for brand awareness, marketing, reach out to a news studio or whatever, right? And ask those questions. It doesn't hurt.
Especially at the beginning, get jobs at all costs. Like, jobs create jobs. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, you mentioned it over and over.
Yeah. Who knows who's talking to who? You just got to get as many, lawn signs and jobs done as possible.
What was your first residential job? Can you remember? First client?
It was a front door, actually. So that was the whole reason why we formulated these products. Because when I was doing College Pro, we were brushing and rolling front doors, and I was never really satisfied because I'm like, well, it kind of looks painted.
Right, yeah.
I was like, this is a front door of like $1 million home. I was like, this is not good.
Yeah.
Right, this doesn't look new. So the first job we actually did that we sprayed was a front door, because that was really what I was trying to focus on. And with conventional paints, I used flow modifiers and different brushes, different rollers, foam rollers, different products. And I can never get that factory finish. And then I realized, well, we had to spray. And then above and beyond that, realized, well, the products had to be more durable too.
Gotcha. Thinking back to the original days of SprayNet, what are some of the mistakes that you made that you can highlight on?
Yeah, I was just young and gung-ho, right? So like, no plan really. It was just push as hard as possible. And I always like to tell people, failing to plan is planning to fail. It would have been great for me to have some sort of plan. I obviously started planning thereafter, but I feel like we could have grew, not necessarily faster, but it would have been smoother had we had a plan.
Gotcha. So have a plan in place, and if you were to get a call today from someone who's in that stage of, hey, I'm in this planning stage, what would be your advice?
For me, it's really like Excel, cash flows. What's your budget? What does that look like per month? Because cash is king, right? If you run out of money, you can't continue. So what does your expected revenue look like and your expenses look like per month? What investments do you have to make? And what does it look like at the bottom of each month, even each week, right?
Yeah, start with the numbers.
Yes, always start with the numbers.
You were shocked when you got your patent and realized no one else is doing this. And here you are doing what SprayNet does at its best. What lessons can entrepreneurs take away from watching that?
Everybody always looks at things the way that they've always been done. And as entrepreneurs, we kind of have to take a different angle, and reflect on, is there a better way to do this? Because there's always constraints. And it's like, well, if we can look at those constraints and find a solution around that, then you have a product that works. And often people just don't think to look past that. And it's just question everything.
So that's the key, is like, is there another way to do it? Is there a better way to do it?
Yeah.
And so on.
Yeah, like when I started, people were like, well, you got to paint in these conditions, otherwise there's no way to do it. I'm like, well, why not? Why can't we adjust for the weather, right? It's just about reverse engineering the whys to come up with a solution.
Talk more briefly on reinforcing the vinyl. Since we're here, this is the job.
Yeah.
Is it obviously a layer of paint, then something else goes on top of it?
Exactly. So vinyl typically will distort at about 160 Fahrenheit. And so if you got sun directly on it, it'll warp, especially with a darker color because it absorbs more light, right? So what we do is we actually put a base coat that actually reinforces the vinyl, so thickens it to a certain extent, and actually fortifies it to increase the seed distortion rate, so when we put a darker color, it won't actually warp.
What's been the biggest failure for you as a business owner so far? How did you overcome it? An opportunity to learn.
Yeah, so for us, it was just like, it was always go, 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 go. So always growing as fast as we possibly could. And I didn't realize that came at a cost. So I started not looking at my numbers anymore, only to realize like, wow, like growth sucks cash, right? And cash is king in a business. And we got to the point where I was like, wow, like we're gonna run out of cash. Like I don't know how we're gonna make payroll. That was really, really tough. So we had to maneuver different ways to do that, to actually be able to make payroll and continue moving the company forward. But growth is expensive and you need to plan for it. And that's something that earlier on in my entrepreneurial career, I guess if you will, I didn't plan well enough. So now I always say start with the end in mind. Like what's the end goal? how do we work backwards to it so that we can plan for that growth and understand what that means from a cash standpoint.
Give us a more specific answer as far as what that planning looks like. If you could go back now and do it all over again,
right,
what would it look like?
Well, you see, like, you think that, okay, I'm gonna have all these new franchisees. For us, it was a franchisor, right? So we had all these new franchisees, not realizing that, you know, they're all brand new, they require a lot of support. So what we ended up doing was taking out all of our, you know, corporate team members out of our corporate territories to support them, and our cash cow was our actual territories, and that actually ended up, you know, going to the wayside. So we didn't plan for that. We didn't realize, okay, we need to support these franchisees for them to be successful. Whereas now we understand what that means, right? First-year franchisee, they don't know a lot of the stuff of the industry, right? That's the whole reason why they buy a franchise.
Gotcha. Man, you have 3 patents right now total. What are they? Talk to us about that.
So our first one is actually on our ability to be able to spray vinyl in darker colors. The second one is actually on our ability to weather adjust our coatings. So what most people don't
Weather
realize,
adjust your coating.
yeah, so weather adjust, because most people think like, okay, when I paint something, I gotta prep it and I gotta have the right paint. That's 60% of the battle. The other portion of the battle is, what does the weather look like? Will that film coalesce properly? Will it dry properly? So we know that depending on the weather, that'll change. So we actually adjust the coating for the weather that day so that we get all the pieces of the puzzle to be able to give that warranty that we give. Third one is actually pending one on our new roof coating. So what we've done is we've actually liquefied a roof. So we've taken the same granules that you'd have on a roof, enveloped them in a resin, and we spray that over a roof. So it actually sticks onto the roof, fortifies it, so it actually increases the grade of the roof. You can change the color of it, and basically prolongs its life.
Dude, that's pretty cool. What about like others in the same field right now thinking, should I get a patent, should I not? Can you speak to that a little bit more? Like, why go for a patent?
For us, I think if you can patent your solution, I think you should. The reason for that is not to protect it necessarily, because we don't patent our chemistry because we don't want to divulge it. We patent our process. And the reason for that is just so that people recognize that you're doing something different. From a marketing standpoint, I think it helps us tremendously.
Should people do it right now if they have 20K? If they have a process, should they not? Your take is?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, if you've got something that you can patent, I would suggest that you do so.
Your patents allow you to offer a 15-year no-peel guarantee. How did you come up with that number?
It's funny because it's literally, we said, how long would someone want this to last? And we came up with the number 15 just because it kind of felt like it made sense. But in reality, it doesn't really matter because it's going to last forever, right? Like we could have had actually we wanted to do a 17-year warranty, right? Because people would be like, why 17?
Right.
It's so random. Just to get people asking the question because it's basically going to last forever, right? So we just came up with 15. We actually want to change it to a prime number just to kind of get people's juices flowing.
So really it boils down to just, it's an honest marketing trick that you would say, right? Because you do stand behind your product.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
So you could have 17 years, 20 years?
23.
Does it impact your business negatively if you go in that route? Or, I mean, what are the chances of somebody calling you in year 19?
Right, exactly. The thing is, so our warranty is on no peeling, right? So we do accelerator weathering tests. We put like actual, painted samples in a chamber that simulates, UV, rain, wind, etc. over the years. Cool. So we know that it will not peel. Most standard paint warranties are like 2 years.
So when you mentioned that machine, I thought we were going to be walking into like this huge room and it simulates weather and tornadoes, but this is actually it?
Yeah, this is it. So you have small samples here. So these are painted samples, so they basically face the inside there. So these are UV lights. So there's rain, there's wind, and it just turns, right?
This is the paint, or this is the?
So this is the paint. So it's facing those UV lights. You get rain in there, you get humidity, and you basically leave it in there for thousands of hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this thing never stops working per se.
Exactly.
What does this unit cost, Carmelo?
This one here is about 20,000.
20 grand. Gotcha.
Yeah.
How important is it to have for a painting company? I mean, obviously you're in the R&D, you're developing.
Well, for us, we want to make sure that, when we're creating a product that it actually lasts very long, right? So we benchmark against, OEM products, so factory paints. So if we can actually out-benchmark a factory paint, we know that we give a factory durable finish even better than the factory.
And you can't do that without this machine?
Not really, no.
Technically.
Yeah, no, not really. You'd have to send it out, but, we want to do our R&D in-house.
Absolutely, makes sense. At what point did you decide to become a franchisor? Was it always part of the plan?
It wasn't always part of the plan, but at one point, like I always tell people, your business is either growing or it's dying. You can't stay like this, right? So at one point we had almost 20 trucks on the road. There was a lot of stuff happening, and I thought, well, how do we take this business to the next level? How do we scale past just our local market here? And I used to be a franchisee, so I'm like, franchise model. That's when I started looking into it, and that's really how we started franchising.
What was the most difficult thing as far as your first steps in that direction?
Initially, convincing someone to be a franchisee, right? Because when you're starting out, you don't really have much training, right? You don't have much of a brand. You don't have much of anything that a franchisor needs to have. So I finally convinced 2 people to get a franchise, one 2 hours east of here, one 2 hours west of here, and they both did really, really well. And our training was basically like, got any questions? Yeah, back then we didn't have training.
Well, that's
right?
odd though, because you don't franchise unless you have systems and process built, written out. Here's it is, just copy and paste. But you're saying it sounds like you didn't do it that way.
So I had a lot of that stuff that I initially gave to them, but we didn't have like an official onboarding program like we have now. Now we have an 8-week onboarding program, right? Like we've got a whole bunch of field trainers. Like it was basically like, here's all the stuff that you need. I'll do all the stuff for you on marketing and all of that stuff. And if you have anything, give me a call and then we'll figure it out. And that's actually based on their questions is how we really start to refine our franchise model, right?
The reason I'm smiling, Carmelo, is because it's like, I want to be a franchisee. I show up and you give me everything and you're like, do you have any questions?
Yeah, basically.
I'm like, what do I do? Where do I go from here?
Well, so that's how I started learning about, like, I didn't know what they didn't know, right? Like there's so many little things that I'm like, oh wow, I've been doing this for so long that I just thought that was normal, right? So, okay, let's add that in the training. Let's add that in the training, right? So those first 2 were kind of our pilot, I guess, if you will. And we learned a ton. And then we, every time we had more franchises, we learned. And now obviously we've got a pretty robust system.
For sure, 130 plus locations.
Yeah, so we've done it a few times now.
Yeah. You started your business in a recession. What was that like for you?
Actually, for our type of business, it was kind of a positive because people are looking for a cheaper alternative, right? So they're not replacing their windows anymore. They're not, necessarily want to replace their doors or their siding. It's like, well, it can give me all those benefits, but for a fraction of the cost. So we really positioned ourselves properly during that period, and that's what actually helped us grow as fast as we did.
Obviously, you didn't plan for it. You were doing what you were doing, and it happened to be the time. And
yeah, and sometimes like you got to get right timing in business, right? Like you got to get lucky. Like everybody talks about hard work and all that stuff, but there is a luck component to business. Like it's the reality of it.
What was the source of the luck? Tell us.
That's a good question. I mean, look, I feel grateful and lucky that I was in this industry and saw something that could be changed, but had I not been in the industry, then I wouldn't have been able to see something that needs to be changed. So
that's a good point.
Basically lucky to have been in this industry.
Started with College Pro, gave you the experience, opened your eyes, and led you to this point.
Yeah, one thing leads to another, right?
How can you ensure quality of work when you're not on site? What's your process?
Well, for us, there's a few pieces. There's the customer satisfaction. So we send out a Net Promoter Score after every single job. And also how many Google reviews are we getting, right? If we're getting a high Net Promoter Score, high Google reviews, we know the customer is happy. Then the other piece is, will the paint job last the test of time? And we formulate literally to make it as, as simple to apply as possible for our franchisees and our staff.
So when your team shows up, you're obviously not on every site, right? As an owner of the company. Right. What process do they follow, stick to make sure that it's the same across all projects, all locations, and so on?
So actually on our gallons, we have a QR code. Literally they can scan and see exactly how to apply it. Of course, we have a whole training program that's pretty extensive. So we can literally take someone who's never painted before and train them to do this because it's quite different from regular painting. How
much money do you currently spend on ads, and can you break the cost down for our viewers as far as platforms?
Yeah, so across our entire system, we're spending between $3 and $4 million a year on advertising.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I mean,
you're right. 30 mil plus. Yeah, makes sense.
You're looking at 10. Yeah, 10% is what you want your customer acquisition cost to be. When you're starting up your business, it's going to be a bit higher than that.
Makes sense.
So yeah, we have the initial launch marketing. That's why it's a bit higher than that. That 10%.
What about platforms?
So I mean, I think you always need to start with low-hanging fruit. Facebook, AdWords. If people are searching, especially on AdWords, you need to have high impression share. So you want to make sure that your ads are showing. So impression share is super important on AdWords. Once you've maximized that and you've satiated that, the AdWords budget, then I would say Facebook. Because one is, pull marketing and the other one is push marketing. You kind of want to balance both of those. I say those are the 2 low-hanging fruits, and then you start layering on top of that.
Give us the top layers as well.
So top layers, door hangers work really, really well, especially when you're in the area. Nextdoor is really, really good for home services. Yeah, I mean, YouTube ads, remarketing ads. Instagram, when I talk about social, Facebook, I'm talking about Instagram too. I'd say those are the top ones. After that, you can start layering in, magazines, billboards. But you really want to start doing that once your business really scales, past $2, $3, $4 million.
Why? Because of the cost associated with that?
Yeah, because those are more branding plays, right? At first, you want to generate leads, and then you want to start, layering on branding. Once you've started to satiate those, you're spending a whole bunch on AdWords and you have high impression share, you're maximizing your Facebook budget. What else can you do to kind of maximize all of that? then you start layering in those billboards and all that branding stuff.
I like how you said, focus on leads first that will give you the business.
Exactly.
Not so much on branding as much, right? And
Yeah, because everybody thinks like, oh, well, you know, you have to know this brand.
Right.
But I mean, when you think of home services, there's no McDonald's of home services necessarily, right? People just want to know what you're about. And you can do that through Facebook ads. You can do that on AdWords, right? So it's literally when you show up, that's when you explain how you're different. Your brand is going to grow over time, but that's not really the important piece up front. You need to get jobs, right? Jobs create jobs.
Yeah. What type of advertising have you seen perform best? You know, digital, boots on the ground. Speak to that a little bit more.
I mean, if you've got the money, digital, I mean, the reach is just so great, right? You have to have the proper creative, the good videos and all that, and it'll work amazing. But if you don't have the money, I mean, boots on the ground works. Like, a ton of people do it. That's how I started. People don't realize you can just knock on doors and sign jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nothing else to it?
No, I mean, obviously you want to have a process to it, like, right? You're not just like, hey, can I paint your house? It's like, hey, I noticed something on your house, you know, like, you know, what do you think about me giving you a quote? And like, you know, just leaving your card and maybe going back, you know, 2 weeks later. You're going to get a lot of no's before you get some yeses, right? But it's about, you know, I don't like to cold call, I like to warm call. So if I notice something on the house that needs to be done, then I'll kind of knock, right? And be like, hey, you know, I noticed this. You know, did you know that we can do this at this price? Oh, wow, really? I didn't know. Yeah.
I never thought of it in that way.
Yeah.
So you find something that's actually wrong and you come in that way, making it more of a warm approach than cold.
Yeah, I'm not just randomly coming to sell you something. I noticed something on your house that I think we could fix. You know, let's see if we can work together.
Imagine someone has no door-to-door experience. I'd love to just role play with you. I'm the homeowner. You're the one showing up to my house. Can we show our audience what that sounds like?
Sure. I just like to preface with, you're going to get a lot of no's and a lot of doors slammed in your face.
Let's say I'm going to be the yes.
Exactly.
You got to get to it.
Yeah. You got to get to it. So normally what I like to say is, hey, we're in the neighborhood. We're looking for jobs. Here's what we do.
Okay.
I noticed something on the house. Your garage door is faded because that's.
Oh man, are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't pay attention to that. Okay, well, I don't really mind, but.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's probably not as expensive as you think it'd be. So if you'd like, I can give you a quick quote. I'll leave it with you. I'll be in the area in the next few weeks anyways. And then if you think about it, you can give me a call, but I'll be back. We'll be doing jobs in this area anyways. So when you're ready, we're here for you.
Okay, what do you need from me?
Basically, I just need 5 minutes of your time. Let's go outside. Let's see if there's anything else that maybe you'd like to get done. I'll give you the quote. Obviously, no pressure.
Yeah, I don't need to do anything else besides that? No commitments?
No, zero. So the big thing is, on your garage door, we give a 15-year no-peel warranty. So
really?
It actually won't look like it's painted.
The other guys are saying 2 years max.
Well, usually that's what it is. And I wouldn't suggest putting a conventional paint on your garage door, only because it's not as scratch resistant as you'd like, and it'll eventually fade pretty quickly too. So you want a factory finish. That's basically our whole concept, right? We deliver the factory finish on site, and we give you a 15-year no-peel warranty.
Okay, well that's a quick role play there. I'm sure there's a lot ifs and buts and no's.
Situational, right? Yeah, situational.
What are the biggest objections you get? Like, what do they sound like?
So especially when we're first starting out in a new territory, people kind of don't think it's true, right? It's too good to be true. So, well, you know, why does your paint last longer, and why all this stuff? So, price is always going to be one, right? And you know, I think people always have a price that's in their mind, and your job as a salesperson is to kind of bridge the actual price with what's in their mind by, you know, what we call the value gap, right? So keep adding value to your service. So what we do is on the go around, we talk about how much work it's going to take, why we do it this way, why, you know, what all the steps are. Because sometimes people think, well, it's very quick, it's going to take like an hour, right? But no, here's actually how we do it so that it lasts as long as it does. So every time you start doing that, you kind of bridge that gap more and more and more, so that when you go to ask for the job, well, hopefully you're kind of not too far, right? The goal here is just, how can we do something on your house that has the maximum impact for your budget? Not how do we charge you more, right?
Gotcha. So you were on the show called Dragon's Den, similar to Shark Tank on the US side. Talk to us about, did you reach out to them? They reach out to you? What did that do to your business after the fact?
So they actually reached out to me. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to do the show because I didn't just want to go on the show for just publicity, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, they reached out a few times. So I said, you know what, let's try this. It could be fun. And honestly, it was one of the best decisions we've ever made. It allowed us to basically sell out the entire country in terms of franchises. Yeah, like we got so many franchise requests out of that Microsoft shut off our server because they thought we were getting hacked. So people were going on our Facebook page, and I kid you not, someone literally put the meme, you know, like take my money.
Yeah.
Yeah, like customers wanted us to do jobs, people wanted to get franchises. It was just amazing.
You get the publicity. Did it cost you anything other than time?
No.
And prep?
No, exactly. No,
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, so if Shark Tank or if UpFlip reaches out to you and says, hey, we want to give you a shout out, let's do a collab, let's do an interview. You better say yes.
That's right. That's right.
Not hurt. What are the advantages and disadvantages of bringing on an investor when you're scaling a company? Because clearly you didn't go with that option. So
No.
the question is why?
When you're growing a business, we were very tight on cash flow at some points, right? So, with investors, you have a bit more buffer, and that gives you a bit more clarity to make proper decisions, right? You're not always thinking cash flow, payroll. So, I mean, that definitely the pro of having an investor. I just personally didn't do it just because I didn't feel that bringing in extra capital would actually help us grow faster.
I see.
So it didn't really make sense to do it.
Do you see the need for that as you continue to scale, or you just never give it more thought at this
At some point,
time?
we'll probably consider it if it makes sense to.
Yeah.
If we're able to provide a good return to investors and it makes sense for the business to grow faster, then that's something that we consider. We just haven't done it so far.
Yeah, you're not there yet.
Yeah.
How important is having the right mentors, and how did that change the game for you? Because you got them or him or her later in the process, right? You didn't
Yeah.
have anybody originally.
No, well, I mean, I did learn a lot from college pro, right, as a franchisee,
yeah.
so I got a lot of foundational knowledge. But yeah, for a while I went, solo, and you just don't know what you don't know, right? You can avoid mistakes. Having mentors who've been there and done that before, it's hugely valuable. Like even just other entrepreneurs.
How did you find yours? Or
Through
what did you-
association, so International Franchise Association for myself personally. It's just other people that have done it, reached out.
You reached out, or
I reached out. I said, hey, you're successful in franchising. I'd like to pick your brain. Normally people say yes. Like,
did it cost you as an investment?
No. I mean, like most other entrepreneurs like helping other entrepreneurs, right?
Well, there's paid coaching, and there's the coaching that you're talking about, a relationship, they're willing to help.
Yeah, mentorship. I just hired my first business coach literally 2 months ago.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Why take that step? You're at 30 million this year soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, the next step is to get to 100 million, right?
Yeah.
So again, I don't know what we don't know. So, if someone can help structure and avoid some mistakes, why not, right? You can't know everything yourself.
Absolutely. So what's your role now? How's it evolved since day one?
Well, I mean, day one I was doing everything, right?
Yeah.
Now we've got a pretty solid team, we've got a leadership
Absolutely.
team. So basically our role now is to create a more optimized business model for our franchisees so that we're better serving our end customer, which is the homeowner.
When do you start the day? When do you wrap it up?
I mean, 7 a.m., wrap it up. I don't know if we ever really wrap it up, but I mean, usually I go to bed around 10. So
10 o'clock? Not bad.
Yeah.
For a father of 4.
Yeah.
I try to do that. Sometimes it's impossible.
Yeah, I try to get those 8 hours of sleep.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's take a moment, break from all business talk. I'm curious, Carmelo, with all the success coming your way, you're doing all the great things. Are you happy? Are you joyful? Like, how are you spending your time outside of this busy hustle?
Yeah, well, I mean, for sure, I'm happy. I mean, I like to be challenged, and I think the business is challenging. But outside of this, I've got 4 kids. So I've got 2 twins, young girls.
Wow.
I've got an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old. So yeah, for sure, I'm happy. I mean, this has allowed us to live the life that we would want to live, right?
One thing I read real quick, and I think it's important to share, I think family relationships a lot of times are changed on our priority list. We make it less. But I read, and one person said that it's there if we accomplish great things that we get the greatest reward in life.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think you'd agree, right? I'm a father of 3 kids as well, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think if I would leave somebody with one important thing is starting in a business is make sure that your spouse is supportive of it. Because the business is not just you, it's the whole family. It envelops every part of your life, right?
Well said.
Yeah.
What is the best and most rewarding part of being an entrepreneur?
For me personally, it's seeing people succeed in business as a result of our system, right? I have a lot of friends that always say like, I'd like to start a business like you, but I don't have an idea. And as a franchisor, we are that catalyst, right? We are the idea, but they can still have their own business. That's kind of our why at this point, right? It's pretty cool to see that people can buy this business, make money with something that we started from scratch. It's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's one book that's been absolutely life-changing for you? What is one highlight that you can speak to?
Well, the E-Myth Revisited, that's what allowed me to basically scale the business to a franchise model, right? Yeah.
It's funny because you're like the 4th, 5th person in a row that's been telling us about this book, so it's absolutely a must-read. But go back to what you learned from it. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, basically process everything that you're doing. If you want to scale, you need to be able to obviously duplicate that, right? So if you're talking about, okay, well, how do I show up to the job site? What am I doing when I show up to the job site? How do I talk to the customer? You basically have to document all of that because especially if you want to start a franchise, to be able to train people, you need all of this documented. So we've got hundreds of pages of stuff all in our LMS, so you can't scale without proper training.
How many times have you read it?
So I've read it twice.
Twice, gotcha.
Yeah. So the story I like to tell about the E-Myth Revisited is actually, so before franchising, I was a franchisee. And then I started my own business, and I was actually, the taper, the painter, the team lead, the marketing person. I was everything. I was spraying a house, phone to my ear. As I'm spraying, phone falls, throw my spray gun down. I said, you know what, enough is enough. I need to change something. That's when I read the E-Myth Revisited, and I'm like, you know, this is how I can scale my business.
One piece of advice you'd like to leave with our wonderful audience?
You can't fail if you don't quit. I mean, just
Beautiful.
keep going. Favorite quote is actually by Henry Ford: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. So just keep going, don't quit, and you'll get it done.
That's awesome. It's been my pleasure, Carmelo. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to check out episode 166 with Neil Parekh, who started a cleaning business all remote and grew it to a national brand. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it a lot, and see you next time.